This episode contains references to topics which may be triggering for some viewers, including ancestral trauma, the Holocaust, persecution, and sexual assault. We've included timestamps in the description so you can skip those parts if you need to.
Why would we bring our outside shoes and walk around on carpet and tiles inside someone's house and then go lie on someone's bed? I just can't even imagine.
I was always told you must marry a nice Jewish boy, you must marry a nice Jewish boy, and I used to go out of my way to date every single non-Jewish guy possible. My father was very upset. I used to say, Dad, you married a non-Jewish girl.
I want my great-great-grandkids to be like, why do we have to remove our left shoe? I get to decide what are the traditions for.
I want to heal the pain that I have come from and not carry those responses into my own life.
My mom makes it known that she is proud to be Jewish, and I think that is something that my mom and dad definitely passed on. And also to marry Jewish. Not that they would disown me or anything, but it's kind of it'd be nice if you married someone Jewish because they would have the same values.
We really just try to celebrate in the ways of wearing red means luck, the superstitions, all those little cultural tidbits.
When we move into a new house, make sure the first thing you bring is a bag of rice for good luck. Getting 12 round fruits for New Year. In our home, now we do that on the American New Year, and then we also do it for Rosh Hashanah, and make sure you drink the tea. Doesn't matter what it is, anxiousness, cold, make sure you drink some tea and put some fix on you.
Sharing family stories too is a very powerful way to keep that little spark of family.
Both my parents felt very divorced from some of the superstitious or the religious aspects of their culture and their values. So a lot of the values that they brought down to me were much more secular, progressive values, but one of those values was really remembering history.
Heirlooms are those things that have kept through the generations are just really important. There was a sake set that my grandmother had. It would symbolize something that was really important.
Language definitely was passed down from both sides. That was important to both of my parents that we had Hebrew school and then Chinese school and then eventually moved to China.
There was a lot of focus on education and on learning. People would be like, oh yeah, you're Asian, so you must have parents who are really about school. And I'm well, yes, but also no, not in the way you think. That was a strange way I related.
Both of my parents really wanted to talk to us like adults from a pretty young age and make sure that we could feel honest and open with both of them. And on both sides, the encouragement to always question and forever explore has probably led me to being a little bit of a nomad. Now it's the sad irony that we're all really spread apart. I'm you pass this down, can't stay in one place.
There is so much that I am trying to unlearn about the ways that I've been socialized and how I grew up. For example, my family is huge when it comes to beauty. I think that's also a really big part of Filipino culture, this emphasis on beauty pageants. My sister was a beauty queen. My mom was really beautiful growing up, so there's this deep, deep need to be and be perceived as really beautiful. Part of the reason that beauty was really important is because my grandmother literally had to escape the Philippines, and she was really, really beautiful, and they were worried that the soldiers would rape her. And so she dressed up like an old woman and hobbled and escaped. There's so much contextual history that I'm really trying to learn about so that I can move through it and not carry that kind of pain and those responses into my own life.
In both families, there's a value of being perfect. I remember going to Japan and showing my family a picture of me and my best friend. She was regular weight, but I was much skinnier than her. I was underweight at the time. My family was oh, she's a little overweight. Every time I go to Japan, when I was underweight, random people would go up to me and be oh, you have good style, which means good body. And a part of me is scared that when I go back to Japan, people won't compliment me like they used to. And I really resent how that has affected me so much. I'm trying to unlearn that.
There are definitely a lot of things in Orthodox Judaism that can be very problematic. Views on things that I'm just I can't get behind that. That just doesn't make any sense to me.
There have been difficulties, unfortunately, primarily around LGBTQ plus issues. My Jewish side of the family has been much more accepting and much more open towards those types of issues, whereas I've had many, many difficult conversations with my Muslim family members. It's a gradual evolution in terms of Indonesian society, but I feel it's an issue within religion in general.
My Japanese family is very to themselves. We do not hug each other.
My Japanese grandmother hugs this. It's a pat, pat, pat.
Everyone just stands up and says hi.
and they're American.
My mom and grandma was like very huggy, touchy-feely, and because of that, like that's how I am with my friends.
My dad's side, the Jewish side, is like really emotional. My dad used to cry like every day about something.
It's such a shock to me when I do have to engage with my Japanese side, or even my dad when he was alive. It was very cold almost.
In Japanese culture, a lot of times it's let's just take all our emotions and like keep them inside, not acknowledge them. I'm a big advocate for mental health and therapy, and my mom is like not about that life, but I think that being able to share and being vulnerable can be helpful. It is a strong cultural thing about like we need to be strong, we need to be strong for our family, we need to be strong for ourselves.
And I have to think that is in part because of the traumas that they faced, and instead of, you know, looking to their community and family to heal from it, they just went inward instead and just passed it on from generation to generation.
I think about this a lot, about how like Japanese side and Jewish side, both of our families have been in internment camps. Historically, we come from like two groups of people that have suffered for like years and years.
For my Jewish side, who's faced many traumas, they've been resilient because of our close-knit family.
A lot of immigrant communities in the US would like share this, but I'm thinking a lot about just like economic anxiety. Both my Jewish family and my Chinese family, I think, felt that. My dad immigrated from Costa Rica and my dad's mom immigrated from China. So it's like two generations of immigrants into a new world that had to deal with that economic anxiety. So I feel that a lot.
On a more positive note, there is something beautiful that comes from both my cultures of honoring your ancestors, which is something that I love. When I go to a Shinto shrine with my mom and honor my grandpa, that's a beautiful value to have.
What I really love about both cultures is being able to like take care of the elderly like when they're older.
That goes along with one of the values that I was going to say that's been passed down in my family is respecting your elders. And in my Chinese side, we were always taught to greet people by their names. When you walk into a room, I kind of do that in any setting now. It doesn't have to be just with Chinese people, but I think it's a very polite and respectful thing to do.
For my mom's side of the family, because they're very recent immigrants, it has been family. My Indonesian family, we all live in California, so we always like meet up at least once a month, or we'll Zoom once a month and be there for each other.
Family is very important, and we're very close and tightly knit.
One time my grandma, she had this like issue. I think her dog got out. She like was freaking out, and she called her brother who was on the other side of the state. And he was like, no, that is my sister. Like, I am coming to help her.
For my Jewish side, just the idea of mitzvah and doing things for other people, whether that's delivering someone a meal during this quarantine time or doing grocery shopping for someone that might not be able to go out of the house or is a little more high risk.
Tikkun Olam was a big one passed down, to try to leave any space or social environment slightly better than how you found it, if that means listening a little bit more compassionately.
For my Jewish side of the family, it's been this commitment to public service and social justice.
If there is an opportunity for you to help your community, like you go and you help, you go and you volunteer, you stand up, you speak out.
My mom used to take me to all these protests for education and protests for wages. That was really a big part of my upbringing and my family, and I think that's also what brought my parents together.
I try to carry that on and try and use my skills to make the world a better place and highlight inequity and injustice where I can.
My Russian grandmother always spoke about like the Holocaust and like Jewish persecution. It took a long time for that to sink in, honestly. I thought when I was younger, it was a bit hysteric. As I've gotten older and learned more and just seen more and just been exposed to more, I see how really ingrained anti-Semitism is to like daily thought in like American life and just globally. And then for my South African Indian side, apartheid was like a huge influence on my father's life. And visiting South Africa, it's so clear what apartheid did and what it continues to do despite it officially ending. It doesn't feel like I can be happy with myself unless I'm like doing something to educate myself on those issues.
It's a little bit different though on my dad's side of the family. He was that first generation. They had been through Uzbekistan, Afghanistan, India to Pakistan, Palestine to Israel, and then they came over here. So it's been just a whole lot of moving, losing family members. So their values also have a hint of stay close to your family, trust in certain people, and don't leave anybody behind. Those are things that like really resonate, and I try to spread that out to just the community and the greater Jewish community and the greater community around me.
Judaism to me is like family and community and traveling and feeling like you can find a place where you belong anywhere, which is something so beautiful. Being Asian to me, it's like food and family, and when I'm in India with my family, things feel like they make sense.
Because me and my husband are building the Jewish traditions for our family, I think it's very important that I'm also incorporating Filipino traditions into them, because like down the line, I want my great-great-grandkids to be like, why do we have to get all these 12 pieces of fruit? Or I want to do something silly. Why do we have to remove our left shoe? Like, I get to decide are the traditions where they'll just do it because I do things that I don't really necessarily understand why, but my mom does it.
I love the traditions. I love Shabbat and doing things on a cycle. I love all the holidays, going to shul. I am able to connect in that way.
I really love the Jewish teaching of how we have sort of 3 different levels of our soul, starting with the nefesh, which is like the animal soul, and then we have our ruach, which is the spirit, and then our neshama, which is like the higher upper soul. I like to think about my nefesh being American, and my ruach is Korean, and my neshama is Jewish. So I kind of make sense of these 3 different identities in these interwoven ways through the different aspects of my soul.
I'm actually very grateful for both sides. They kind of are the nice nuances of both sides of my personality, and I feel like I've been able to navigate life situations, and I'm grateful for that.